is a truth that leaves many speechless when they finally realize it. The painful awareness that they once gave away the best parts of themselves, their love, their loyalty, their time, only to be taken for granted by someone who never truly saw them. It wasn't because they weren't good enough. It wasn't because they weren't worthy. It's because the other person, a narcissist, operates on a deeply flawed assumption that your patience is infinite, that your kindness belongs to them, that your boundaries can be bent at their convenience. And then, one day, without fanfare, without drama, just in a quiet moment, you begin to see it. The fog lifts. A part of you that had been buried under layers of self-doubt and manipulation speaks up again. Enough. That is the moment you reclaim control. The moment the roles reverse, and the person who once saw you as a dim background suddenly panics at the loss of what they never appreciated. Today, we're going to explore that turning point, the moment you are no longer the one holding on, but the one letting go. And not just letting go, but rising, proud, whole, and unbroken. Stepping out of the whirlwind of manipulation with a spirit no longer torn apart by their psychological games. If you haven't seen yourself in these words, if you're searching for answers, for validation, or for a way out, stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to hear won't just help you understand them, the manipulators. It will help you rediscover yourself, recognize your true strength, and reclaim the worth that was always yours. And if these insights resonate with you, don't forget to hit subscribe, turn on notifications so we can continue this journey together toward healing, growth, and uncovering the deepest corners of the human psyche. Let the truth set you free. Part 1. When love becomes an invisible burden, there is a kind of wound that many fail to recognize at first, because it doesn't come from overt acts like physical abuse or harsh words. Instead, it creeps in silently, subtly, often within the very relationship you once believed to be your safest haven, the relationship with someone you love deeply. It's the kind of wound that comes from having your kindness, your dedication, your trust slowly turned into an obligation, something expected, something taken for granted. Worse still, these gifts become tools of control in the hands of a narcissist without you even realizing it. Think back to the beginning. Everything seemed fine, didn't it? You entered the relationship with an open heart, carrying this simple desire to love and be loved. You believed that if you gave enough care, enough patience, enough forgiveness, they would eventually reciprocate. That's the natural belief of someone who knows how to love with their whole heart. But to a narcissist, these offerings were never seen as gifts. And instead, your kindness became something they felt entitled to take, regardless of your feelings or boundaries. They didn't cherish it. They didn't reciprocate. They exploited it. And this is where the tragedy begins, not with explosive arguments or blatant betrayals, but with the small, seemingly harmless moments. A furrowed brow when you express your feelings, a dismissive shake of the head when you speak of your needs, passing comments that make you question whether you're asking for too much. And then over time, you begin to adjust. You express your emotions less, you sacrifice more, you compromise further, all in the name of preserving a fragile peace. This is how love, once given freely, quietly transforms into an invisible burden, one that weighs on your soul while you keep trying to hold everything together. But what is the truth? The truth is you are being slowly drained. A narcissist doesn't seek connection, they seek control. They operate under a hidden mechanism, using your kindness as a source of emotional fuel to sustain their fragile yet insatiable ego. The more patient you are, the more forgiving you become, the more you reinforce their belief that you will always be there, no matter how they treat you. And the most frightening part, you don't realize it right away. No one does. Not when it all unfolds so gradually, so subtly, like a frog in water slowly heating to a boil. You don't feel the danger until it's too late. You might even start blaming yourself. Maybe I'm not good enough, not patient enough. You lower your standards, try a little harder, hoping that if you change, they will finally reciprocate. But here's the truth, my friend. No amount of love will ever fill the void inside a narcissist's soul. Not because you aren't good enough, but because they don't see you as an independent human being with your own feelings and needs. To them, you are a fixture in their world, something to be adjusted, controlled, molded to their will. And the more patient and self-sacrificing you are, the more deeply they entrench that belief. Perhaps right now you're asking yourself, how do I know if I'm caught in that cycle? The answer lies in how you feel. If you constantly feel like you have to compromise, like you have to silence yourself to keep the peace, like you need permission just to feel, these are clear signs that love, has turned into an invisible burden. Not all love heals. Some relationships, instead of nurturing you, slowly erode who you are at your core. And that is why today's video matters so much. We're not just talking about narcissists and their manipulations. We're talking about you, about how you can recognize, protect, and reclaim yourself. About how you can take back your voice, your feelings, your boundaries. Things that should never have been violated in the first place. Feeling right with you, if I've loved, if shared so far is resonating with you, if you feel that you have been, or perhaps still are caught in such a cycle, I want you to know that you are not alone. There is a path forward, a way out of control and back to yourself, but it begins with recognizing your true worth and finding the courage to take those first steps. Stay with me until the end of this video. Together, we will peel back the layers, expose the subtle tactics of manipulation, and more importantly, uncover ways for you to reclaim your inner strength. And if this feels like the journey you need, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, not just so you won't miss the next video, but as a declaration to yourself. I deserve to be heard, to be understood, and to be healed. Because on this journey, you don't have to walk alone. Part 2, manipulation begins with the smallest things. Part 2, manipulation begins with the smallest things. When people think about manipulation in a relationship, they often picture the obvious, explosive arguments, blatant lies, or open betrayal. But with a narcissist, everything is far more subtle. Manipulation doesn't start with direct attacks. It begins with the tiniest details, things that seem harmless at first, but these small details become the foundation of an intricate psychological game you never even knew you were playing. Maybe it's just a sharp glance when you express your feelings, a seemingly harmless comment, you're being too sensitive, or the time you shared something that made you sad only to be met with prolonged silence, as if your emotions weren't worth noticing. And from those small scattered moments, you begin to ask yourself, am I overreacting? That's exactly how the manipulation starts. No yelling, no overt pressure. The narcissist plants a seed of doubt inside you. And if you're not careful, that seed grows. Until you no longer trust your own emotions, you begin to censor yourself before speaking. You carefully consider whether what you're about to say might upset them. And then little by little, you choose silence, even though your heart is overflowing with things that deserve to be heard. Imagine this. If at the beginning you felt safe enough to share openly, now every time you want to speak, you hesitate, wondering, is this even worth mentioning? Or will I just be bothering them again? And the more you censor yourself, the easier it becomes for the narcissist to manipulate your boundaries. Without ever forcing you, they make you shrink your own emotional space. They teach you to doubt yourself, piece by piece, until you can no longer distinguish between your true needs and the false narrative they've planted within you. The danger of this process is that it's not loud, it's not dramatic, it moves like an undercurrent. Slow, steady, relentless. A slight furrow of the brow when you talk about what hurt you. Forgetting your birthday. A harsh word wrapped in sugar. I'm only saying this because I care about you. And you start to wonder, maybe I am being too sensitive. Maybe I should just be grateful they're here. You see, this isn't just emotional manipulation. It's a remapping of your boundaries. The narcissist slowly redraws the psychological map within you, blurring the territories that once belonged to you. Your needs, your limits, your emotions. And when you're no longer sure what you need, what you want, you become easier to mold, easier to adjust. They don't have to issue commands. You reshape yourself to fit the mold they've designed. But then there are those awakening moments. Moments when, even as you're caught in their web, a quiet voice inside whispers, this isn't right. Maybe it's the time you broke down crying and no one listened. Or the moment you sat alone, realizing you've abandoned your dreams, your passions. That's the voice from deep within, the truest part of yourself that hasn't been completely buried. And that's why this video matters so much, not just to help you recognize the subtle manipulations of the narcissist, but to remind you that your feelings are valid, your needs are legitimate, the desire to be heard, to be valued, that is not asking too much. That is the basic right of anyone in a healthy relationship. If what I've shared so far resonates with your own story, if you've ever found yourself doubting your own emotions, stay with me until the end of this video. Together, we'll take a deeper dive into these manipulative tactics, and more importantly, I'll show you how to rebuild your boundaries, reclaim your voice, and restore the confidence you rightfully deserve. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to continue walking this journey with me, because you are not alone. We are here to strip away the fog of manipulation and rediscover the light of truth within ourselves. Part 3. The awakening moment. A silent rise. There is a moment in every awakening journey that, though small, shakes the very foundation of everything you once believed. It doesn't arrive with a loud bang, nor does it come from a dramatic confrontation. Instead, it's a silent rise, a quiet undercurrent that pushes you away from the edge of endurance. It might be nothing more than a cold glance passing over you when you needed to be heard, a silence that lingers far too long after you've opened your heart. No one screams at you that you're unworthy, but the indifference speaks volumes. And then, right there in that moment, something inside you stirs. It doesn't roar, it doesn't boast, it's just a quiet whisper in your mind. Enough. Not enough for just that day, but enough for the long stretch of time you've spent turning a blind eye, shrinking yourself to fit the confines of the cage the narcissist built around you. Isn't it remarkable how the greatest shift doesn't come as a scream, but as a steady, resolute whisper? A firm declaration from your soul that you can no longer sacrifice yourself any further. And from that moment on, the balance begins to shift. The person who once believed they controlled your every emotion, who viewed you as an emotional puppet, suddenly senses the change. Not because they love you, not because they've recognized your worth, but because they feel the loss of what they've always needed: control. Pause for a moment and feel that. This change isn't anger. It isn't revenge. It's a gentle yet powerful awakening. A part of you, the part that had been suffocated by self-doubt and subtle manipulation, begins to rise and reclaim its voice. It demands space once again. Space where your feelings are acknowledged, where you are free to be your true self. What's truly surprising is that the narcissist will sense this shift even before you fully realize it yourself. They might not say it out loud, but they feel the tremble in their power dynamic. Your silence is no longer submission, it's separation. Your eyes no longer search for their approval, and that is what terrifies them. But remember, this panic doesn't come from love. They're not afraid of losing you because they cherish who you are. They're afraid of losing the mirror you once held up for them. You were their audience, their cheerleader, the reflection that propped up their fragile ego. When you walk away, you take that mirror with you, leaving them face to face with themselves, with the emptiness and mediocrity they've desperately tried to mask beneath their power play. And here's what's crucial for you to understand. This is the moment when your power begins to return. When you stop reacting according to their old script. When you no longer shoulder the burden of fixing the relationship on your own, you step out of the manipulative cycle. You're no longer a supporting character in their story. You begin writing your own. I know this awakening moment isn't easy. It comes with fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of losing something familiar, even if it has caused you pain. But trust me, that fear is necessary. It's a sign you're moving away from a place that no longer serves you, stepping into the territory of inner freedom. And you don't have to do this alone. In this video, we'll continue exploring the steps to take after that awakening moment. How do you hold your ground when a narcissist tries to pull you back in? How do you resist the temptation of their empty promises to change? Together, we'll decode the tactics they use. And more importantly, I'll help you rebuild a solid psychological foundation so you can move forward with the freedom and peace you truly deserve. If what I've shared so far resonates with you, if you feel that part of you rising, softly whispering enough, stay with me until the end of this video. And don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Not just to catch the next video, but to remind yourself that this healing journey is yours, that you deserve to be supported, understood, and to step out of the shadows of manipulation with your spirit whole and intact. Because from the moment you say enough, a new chapter begins, a chapter where you hold the pen, where you decide the direction of your life. Part 4, when the narcissist returns, the danger of repetition. And then, like a recurring script, they return. But not with genuine remorse. Not with a heart that has truly changed. They come back with the same old tricks wrapped in a shiny new package. Seemingly sincere apologies. Promises that this time it will be different. Maybe it's a sudden text, "I miss you," or a tearful phone call, "I realize the mistakes I've made." These words strike deep into the core of your soul. The part of you that longs to believe people can change, that love is powerful enough to mend old wounds. Pause. Breathe deeply. Let reason step between the rush of emotions and ask yourself, what has really changed? Because the truth is, when the narcissist comes back, it's not a sign of awakening or growth. It's part of the familiar cycle of manipulation, where their greatest fear isn't losing you as a person, but losing the supply of attention and validation you once provided. You might ask yourself, how can I know if this time is real? The answer is simple as it is harsh. Only time and consistent actions can prove true change. A narcissist can persuade you with words. They're masters at it. They know exactly how to appeal to your deepest desires, to your hope for healing, for second chances. They know your empathy will tempt you to open your heart one more time. And this right here is where the danger of repetition begins. Because your heart isn't made of steel. It's soft, vulnerable, easily swayed by beautiful promises. But remember, what you've experienced isn't just a momentary stumble. It's a cycle of manipulation, a pattern where you're lifted up and then torn down again and again until you no longer recognize. Think back. What did they say last time? What apologies were made? What promises convinced you that things would change? And then what happened afterward? Did everything fall back into the same patterns, perhaps even worse? Narcissists don't change because they see their mistakes. They change just enough to keep you there, to maintain control, to feed their fragile ego. What you need to understand is this: their return is not about you. It's about them. It's about their fear of losing someone who reflected back to them a false sense of worth. When you walk away, you take that mirror with you, forcing them to confront the emptiness within themselves. And that is something they simply cannot bear. But what about you? You find yourself once again standing at a tempting crossroads. A part of you, the part that loves, the part that hopes, wants to believe that maybe this time will be different. Maybe, after everything, your love has finally awakened something inside them. And this is when your heart is most vulnerable to the trap. I'm not here to tell you that your longing to believe in change is wrong. That hope is the mark of someone who truly knows how to love. But I am here to remind you, real change does not come from a fleeting moment of panic, nor from tearful words spoken in a moment of weakness. It comes from consistent actions over time. It comes from the way they listen to you without needing to be reminded, from how they respect your boundaries, even when you're not there to enforce them, from the ordinary moments when they choose to understand rather than manipulate. So ask yourself, do I see these things? Or is it just another round of promises? Words thrown into the wind, spoken in the fleeting fear of watching you walk away. This is why I invite you to stay with me until the end of this video, because we're not just going to dissect the familiar tactics narcissists use when they return. We're going to build an early warning system, one that helps you recognize the signs of an old cycle repeating itself. And most importantly, we'll work on strengthening your trust in yourself, in your feelings, in your perceptions, so you won't get pulled back in. If what I'm sharing here resonates with your story, if you've ever felt yourself caught in that cycle, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, not just to receive more in-depth insights, but to remind yourself that you deserve to be loved in a healthy way, without conditions, without manipulation. Because you deserve so much more than a hurried return full of empty promises. You deserve a mature relationship where you are heard, understood, and cherished every day, not just when the other person fears losing you. Part 5, your recovery, true freedom. True freedom isn't simply about walking away from a relationship with a narcissist. It's not about slamming the door shut and carrying on with life as if nothing ever happened. True freedom is the journey of rediscovering yourself, the parts of you that were buried beneath layers of doubt, pain, and manipulation so subtle that you no longer recognized what your real feelings were or what you truly deserved. Because if you've ever been in a relationship with a narcissist, you know this feeling all too well. The feeling that you needed permission just to feel. The hesitation to speak your sadness. The second guessing when asking for the most basic things in love. Respect. To be heard. To be genuinely cared for. But in that relationship, you were taught otherwise, that your needs were too much, that your feelings were too sensitive, that standing up for fairness was selfish. And this is why healing from such a relationship is anything but simple. You're not just mending wounds, you're rebuilding trust in yourself. Trust that your feelings are valid. Trust that you have every right to speak up. Trust that you deserve a love that is healthy, unconditional, and free from power games. This journey begins when you accept a truth that seems simple, but is incredibly hard to embrace. Your peace matters more than pleasing others. Because in a relationship with a narcissist, you've sacrificed that peace just to keep them comfortable, to soothe their anger, to keep everything calm. But in exchange, you lost parts of yourself. Your voice, your boundaries, the sacred limits that should never have been crossed. And here's what I need you to understand. You are not responsible for saving them from their crisis. You are not the healer of the deep cracks in their soul, cracks they refuse to face, refuse to own. That is not your mission. Your only responsibility is to heal yourself, to live in alignment with the values and worth you inherently possess. Real recovery isn't about grand comebacks or monumental victories. It's about the small, steady steps. When you dare to say no to what harms you, when you dare to say yes to your real needs. It's about learning to listen to your own inner voice again, instead of allowing someone else to define your emotions. And then, little by little, you'll find yourself standing tall, no longer bowing your head to avoid someone else's wrath, no longer shrinking to fit within the mold they designed for you. You begin reclaiming ownership over your emotions, rebuilding trust in your own intuition. What once made you feel weak now becomes your strength. What once made you hesitant now becomes the shield that protects you. But I know this journey isn't easy. There will be days when it feels like you're taking steps backward, moments when the old fears resurface. The fear of being alone, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear that maybe you've asked for too much. But remember this, recovery isn't a straight line. It's a path filled with twists, setbacks, and moments of awakening. And that's why I invite you to stay with me until the end of this video, not just so we can explore specific strategies for healing, but so we can rebuild the solid foundation of self-worth and personal value that may have been lost along the way. We'll talk about setting boundaries, about learning to listen to your own needs again, about distinguishing between healthy compassion and unhealthy obligation. And most importantly, we'll create a safe space together, a space where you can heal without feeling like you need to justify it. If what I've shared here resonates with you, if it stirs something within you, bringing back feelings that have long been suppressed, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, not just to receive deeper insights, but as a way to remind yourself that this healing journey belongs to you. You don't have to walk it alone. There are people ready to stand with you, ready to listen, ready to remind you that you are worthy of peace, worthy of a life free from manipulation. Because true freedom isn't about revenge. It's not about proving anything to the narcissist. True freedom is the moment you realize you don't have to prove anything at all. You just have to be yourself, whole, enough, and free. And now, as you look back on this entire journey, from those early days filled with hope, to the moments where you gradually lost yourself, to that awakening moment, you realize something profound. Freedom doesn't come from the narcissist changing. Freedom comes from you changing, from seeing clearly the cycles of manipulation that once held you captive and making the decision not to remain in them any longer. Because the truth is, the narcissist didn't lose you. They lost control over you. They lost the mirror that reflected back the image their fragile ego depended on. They lost the person who once compromised, who stayed silent, who shrank themselves just to keep the peace. And that loss isn't small for them. It's the collapse of the false world they worked so hard to construct. You didn't lose anything. Instead, you reclaimed the parts of yourself that had been buried. Your voice, your boundaries, your self-respect. You no longer need permission to feel. You no longer need to explain your pain to those who choose not to understand. And most importantly, you no longer need to exhaust yourself trying to hold on to someone who was never truly there for you. That is what true freedom looks like. It's not loud or showy, but it's deep, lasting, and powerful. It's the ability to walk away without looking back, without needing anyone's validation or understanding. It's knowing you're worth enough to recognize that love is not suffering. Love is not a cycle of promises and disappointments. And you know what? When you choose to move forward, to step out of the manipulative cycle and into your healing journey, you're not just leaving a toxic relationship behind. You're opening a brand new chapter of your life, one where you are at the center, where your feelings, needs, and dreams are honored and live fully. If this video has stirred something within you, a small but steady voice whispering that you deserve more, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Not just to keep receiving deeper insights, but to remind yourself that this healing journey is yours and you don't have to walk it alone. There's so much more we will explore together. The dark corners of emotional manipulation, strategies for rebuilding self-worth, and how to create a life where you are truly heard, truly understood, and truly loved. Let this journey be the milestone that marks your return, not as someone living in another's shadow, but as a soul that is free, whole, and proud.